Okay, pleased to see you again, viewers. In this video, I am very much delighted and I am very much delighted to complete the grammar item, what is known as sentence pattern. Okay, so this is going to be the continuation of my previous video on sentence pattern. If you remember very well, in the previous video, we discussed 3 different sentence patterns. Alright, we discussed 3 different sentence patterns. So for a reminder, let me write those patterns and we will have an example for each pattern there. So what was the first pattern? We wrote as SV. Okay, subject and verb. Now can we think of a sentence here? See, for example, the students run. The students run. Okay, so what is your subject here? Students. So this is your subject and this is your verb. Therefore, this is SV pattern. SV pattern. Can we think of an example for SVO? Yes, certainly. Say for example, he kicked the ball. He kicked the ball. So what is your subject here? He is your subject, kicked is your verb, the ball is your object. Now you have to revise your learning. In my previous video, what did I say about the object? Object is the word that becomes an answer to the question what. If you ask this question what from the verb that is given in the sentence. Okay, so here what did he kick? He kicked the ball. So the ball becomes an answer to the question what? To the verb kick. So therefore the ball is an object. So this is SVO pattern. And the third pattern what we discussed was SVIODO. SVIODO. Now you remember IO stands for indirect object and DO stands for direct object. Let me write a sentence now. See, my daddy presented me a watch. My daddy presented me a watch. Okay, what is your subject here? My daddy is your subject, presented is the verb, me is what is known as indirect object, a watch is known as direct object. So therefore this is known as SVIODO pattern. Now what is IO and what is DO? If you have only one object, you don't have to write as it is direct object. Does not matter, so you don't have to worry about that. But when you have 2 objects in a sentence, you must be able to identify what is IO, what is DO. Now what is indirect object, what is direct object? Now I told you a direct object will be the answer to the question what on the verb given in the sentence. See for example here, my daddy presented a watch. So what did my daddy present? He presented me a watch. So watch is an answer to the question what. Okay. So this is a direct object. In other words, this is directly involved with the action of the subject. So therefore this is known as direct object. Now what is indirect object here? Me. And I told you me answers the question whom. Okay. Whom. Now read the sentence. My daddy presented me. We are not sure, but the word me acts as an object in this sentence. So it indirectly involves with the action of the subject in the sentence. So therefore, a word that is indirectly involved with the action of the subject is known as indirect object. So the pattern of the sentence is SVIODO. So now only we are coming to this new video. So this is the continuation of the previous video, and this is to help you to recall what we did in the previous video. Now let us continue. Now one more grammar item or one more intimation that we need to pay attention to in sentence pattern is that what is known as complement. Alright, complement. If you remember well, when I started the discussion on sentence pattern, I informed you when we want to learn about sentence pattern, we need to know what is a subject, we need to know what is a verb, we need to know what is object. So when we discussed about objects only, we were dealing with or we were discussing about direct object and indirect object. So the next thing that we must be very familiar with is complement. Now what is complement? Complement is a word that will tell you who the subject is or what the subject is doing or what the subject does in the sentence. In other words, complement is nothing but an appreciation given to a person for what he is. For example, a person can be a doctor or engineer, whatever you may call it. So, complement is a word that tells you who the subject is. In other words, it tells the profession of the subject or the prestige, the power that a person holds. Okay? So, let me write the sentence now. Her mother is an engineer. See? Her mother is an engineer. Now your subject is her mother, is your verb, and engineer is a complement. Now the word engineer tells who my mother is. So therefore, this is a complement. Now there are two complements. One is known as subject complement. One is known as subject complement. Another one is known as object complement. So what is subject complement and what is object complement? Directly I have already written a sentence here. You can take this example for a subject complement. See? Now what is your verb here? My mother is an engineer. Let me write the same sentence here. My mother is an engineer. Okay, now we know my mother is a subject, he is your verb, and engineer is an object. Now look at here. Engineer, the word engineer tells you who the subject is. Who the subject is. So therefore, the word engineer directly involves with the presentation or directly involves with the position of the subject here. Position of the subject. Now what is the position? What does she do? She is an engineer. In other words, she works as an engineer. So that is, since it is directly involved with the subject, and this is known as the subject complement. Now here, we write SVC now. So therefore, the pattern is known as SVC. So this is subject complement. Now what about object complement? Let me write a sentence here. We elected him a captain. See, we elected him a captain. Now you know, we is your subject here, elected is your verb, him is object here, a captain is your complement. Of course, the pattern of the sentence is SVOC. But look at the complement from the previous sentence to this one here. Now, captain refers to whom the object him they refer. It refers to it gives more importance to the object that is given here. Now, of course, subject did something. Subject has done something. But then, what did the subject do? Subject made him a captain. So therefore, him refers to the complement. This is an object here. So therefore, since this captain, the word captain directly involved with the work of an object here, it is known as the object complement. So very simple. So if you another way you can easily understand what is subject complement. Subject complement will always come after like verbs like is, are, was, were. So all these verbs you can think of. There are many verbs that you can think of. Now object complement you can think of, the word will come to as like make, name. So all these will come. We named him captain. We elected him captain. So all these verbs will help us to understand an object complement in a sentence pattern there. Okay. So we are thorough with the complement now. So thorough with the complement. And the last thing that we need to pay attention to in learning sentence pattern is that let me erase the board and then we will write. The last thing that we need to understand here is known as an adjunct. See, adjunct. Alright, adjunct. So this is one more thing that we need to pay attention to when we discuss about sentence pattern. What is an adjunct here? Adjunct here. Adjunct can be an adjective as well as an adverb. Adjunct also will tell you when did the action take place. So when did the subject do this action, or when will the subject do this action, depending upon the verb and the tense. We call that an adjunct here. It will refer to time, it will refer to method, it will refer to place, and also it will refer to reason. In other words, when we learn about adjunct, maybe there is a clue to understand immediately what is an adjunct. There are 4 words which you can think of. What is that? M, P, T, R. So try to remember this. M, P, T, R. Now this M stands for method. P stands for place. T stands for time. And R stands for the reason. R stands for the reason. Okay? R stands for the reason. Now when you have a word referring to any one of these information, we will call that as an adjunct. So we can write an example to each of these to understand better what is an adjunct. What is an adjunct? See now, he runs fast. Okay? He runs fast. He runs fast. Now he is your subject, runs is your verb, fast is an adjunct. It is not an object. It's an adjunct. Now it will tell you how the subject runs. So when you have the word answering to the question how, see, method, how does he run? He runs very fast. And this is also pattern of the sentence is suppose SVA. And this refers to the method. SVA. And therefore this is known as SVA pattern. SVA pattern. And then what about the next one here? The meeting began at 10 p.m. See now, the meeting began at 10 p.m. Maybe you can think it is too late, but does not matter. Actually, the meeting began at 10 p.m. Okay, now what is your subject here? The meeting is your subject. Began is your verb. At 10 p.m. This is your adjunct here. This also again pattern is SVA of course, but it tells you when it answers the question when. See, when. So when you have the word answering the question when, it is an adjunct and it will tell you about the time. About the time. Okay. And then place. Place, there is no space here, so let me write it here. The birds fly in the sky. The birds fly in the sky. Birds fly in the sky. Now in the sky is not your object here. See, the bird subject, fly is your verb, in the sky is your adjunct. Where do the birds fly? In the sky there. Or you can say very high. Say very high. The birds fly very high. So it will answer the question where. It will answer the question where. SVA pattern of course. It will answer the question where. It will answer the question where. And then finally see reason. Reason. What can we think of? What can we think of an example for the reason here? See now. See, for example, we can say the umpire delayed the match, or the match was delayed due to wet ground. The match was delayed due to wet ground. The match was delayed due to wet ground. See, the wet ground, of course, it will tell you why was the match delayed. It will answer the question why. The reason. It will tell you the reason. Therefore, the match is your subject, was delayed is your verb, due to wet ground is your adjunct there. Why? So this is an adjunct there. Okay. So I hope it is very clear now for you what are sentence patterns. Now remember, this adjunct can be written at the beginning of a sentence also. For example, yesterday my mother gave me a watch. Yesterday my mother gave me a watch. When you say yesterday my mother gave me a watch, yesterday becomes an adjunct. So that becomes ASVO. So depending upon the circumstances and the usage, the adjunct can be written at the beginning of a sentence or at the end of a sentence. Okay, now this is all about sentence pattern. Now before we conclude, we will discuss about 5 or 6 sentences as exercises, and then we will wind up this video. Okay, so let me write about 5 or 6 sentences on the board, and then we are going to finally decide the pattern of those sentences, and then we will conclude this video for the time being. Okay, let me write all those sentences are examples. Okay, now I hope the board is clear for you. I try my level best to clean the board, and so that you can read it very nicely. Now what we are going to do now, I am going to write few sentences on the board. I am going to write few sentences on the board so that we can conclude as exercises for various sentence patterns. The first sentence, we call it as exercises. When I write the sentences, you will automatically come to a conclusion. So this is this particular pattern here. Again, you see now, birds fly. Birds fly. Second sentence you can think of, we learn sentence pattern. We wrote this already. We learn sentence pattern. We learn sentence pattern. See, we learn sentence pattern. My daddy offered me a camera. My daddy offered me a camera. Yesterday, next sentence. Yesterday, my students presented me a bag. Yesterday, my students presented me a bag. Another sentence. He painted the car red. He painted the car red. He painted the car red. My mother is an engineer. Maybe one last sentence there. One last sentence. She became a nurse last year. She became a nurse last year. Okay? Now you may already know the sentence pattern of these sentences I wrote already. Let me decide now. What is your pattern of the sentence here? Words is your subject and this is your verb. So therefore this is an example for SV pattern. Subject verb pattern. What about next one? Be is your subject, learn is your verb, sentence pattern is your object. Therefore this is an example for SVO pattern. SVO pattern. For the next one, my daddy is your subject, offered is your verb, me is the indirect object, a camera is the direct object. So therefore, this is an example for SVIO DO. What about next sentence? Yesterday my students presented me a what? Yesterday is your adjunct. My students is your subject. Present is the verb. Me is an indirect object. Back is the direct object. Now look at this. Look at the pattern of the sentence. ASVIO DO. See? ASVIO DO. The pattern of the sentence may vary depending upon the usage of the words at different places. Okay? Now next sentence. He is your subject. Painted is your verb. The car is your object. Red here, it is a complement here. Red is the complement here. Red. Therefore, this is SVOC. What about next one? My mother is your subject. Is verb. Engineer is a complement. And this is an example for SVC. And the last one there. She is your subject. Became is your verb. Nurse is your complement. Last year is an adjunct. So the pattern of the sentence is SVCA. So more or less I have given example in all the patterns. This is it. Clear now? This is what sentence pattern is all about in English. So therefore, in order to understand sentence pattern properly, you need to write more and more sentences and try to identify what is the subject, what is a verb, what is an object, what is direct object, indirect object, what is a complement. So by writing these sentences more and more, when you are free at home or in school, wherever you are, you will be able to become a better understanding student or person by writing the good sentence patterns in English. Alright, so let me conclude this video for the time being. As usual, you know my channel. Please subscribe this English Easy Louis and inform your friends. Inform your friends and make them also to watch this channel. Help them also to watch my channel and ask them, tell them to share their views. This is purely a homely atmosphere help like that I am giving you, I am offering you. So those who are really interested will make use of this video, and if not, you can inform your parent, inform your students, inform your neighbors, inform the other friends close by, and tell them that this is going to be very easy for the students, especially those who are finding difficult to understand the grammar. So in the future also I am going to do the same. So in every video I will present a separate grammar. Maybe depending upon the length of the grammar item, it may take a bit longer there. Alright, so this is enough for this video. Let me conclude sentence pattern. Please subscribe this. See you in the next video. Bye. Have a nice day. Thank you.